God told Noah to bring 2 of every kind of animal, plus 7 pairs of clean animals and birds. Genesis 7:1 shows God's final instruction. The Lord then said to Noah, "Go into the ark, you and your whole family, because I have found you righteous in this generation." Noah obeyed God completely, even though it probably seemed crazy to build such a huge boat when there wasn't enough water around to float it. But Genesis 7:11-12 describes what happened next. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, on that day all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Water covered everything, even the highest mountains. Genesis 7:21-23 tells us the result. Every living thing that moved on land perished: birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out: people and animals, and the creatures that move along the ground, and the birds were wiped from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. For over a year, Noah and his family lived in the ark while the waters slowly went down. Finally, the ark came to rest on Mount Ararat. Noah sent out birds to test if the land was dry, and when a dove returned with an olive leaf, he knew the water was going down. Genesis 8:20 shows what Noah did first when he got out. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. God was pleased with Noah's worship and made a promise that would last forever. Genesis 9:11-13 records this covenant. "I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth." And God said, "This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth." After the flood, Noah's sons had many children, and people began to fill the earth again. But instead of spreading out like God wanted, they stayed together in one place. Genesis 11:1 tells us, "Now the whole world had one language and a common speech." These people had a proud idea. Genesis 11:3-4 describes their plan. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." They wanted to build a tower so tall it would reach heaven, thinking this would make them famous and keep them from being scattered. But God came down to see what they were doing, and he wasn't pleased with their pride. Genesis 11:6-7 shows God's response. The Lord said, "If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." God mixed up their language so they couldn't understand each other anymore. Genesis 11:8-9 tells us what happened. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. This is how different languages and nations began, and it set the stage for God's next great plan. In the city of Ur lived a man named Abram, who worshipped the one true God, while everyone around him worshipped idols. One day, God spoke to him with an amazing offer. Genesis 12:1-3 records God's call. The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." This was an incredible promise. God was going to make Abram into a great nation, bless him, and through him bless the whole world. Genesis 12:4 shows Abram's response. "So Abram went, as the Lord told him, and Lot went with him." Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. Abram took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all their possessions and servants, and started walking toward a land he had never seen. When they reached Canaan, God appeared to Abram again. Genesis 12:7 records this moment. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him. But there was a problem with God's promise to make Abram a great nation. Abram and Sarai had no children, and they were getting old. Genesis 15:2-3 shows Abram's concern. But Abram said, "Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus?" And Abram said, "You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir." God took Abram outside and showed him the stars. Genesis 15:5-6 records God's response. He took him outside and said, "Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them." Then he said to him, "So shall your offspring be." Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. Years passed, and still no child came. Sarai suggested that Abram have a child with her servant Hagar, which was a common practice in those days. Genesis 16:15 tells us, "So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born." But this wasn't the child God had promised. When Abram was 99 years old, God appeared to him again and changed his name. Genesis 17:5 explains, "No longer will you be called Abram, your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations." God also changed Sarai's name to Sarah and promised that she would have a son, even though she was 90 years old. Genesis 18:10-14 shows how this promise was confirmed. Then one of them said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?" Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I am old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sure enough, Genesis 21:1-3 records the miracle. Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. Isaac grew up as the child of promise, but God had one more test for Abraham. Genesis 22:1-2 describes it. Sometime later God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." This was the hardest thing God could ask, but Abraham trusted God completely. He took Isaac to the mountain, built an altar, and was about to sacrifice his son when God stopped him. Genesis 22:11-12 shows what happened. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," he said. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." God provided a ram for the sacrifice instead. and blessed Abraham even more because of his faith. When Isaac grew up, Abraham found him a wife named Rebekah. Genesis 25:21 tells us about their family.